Okay, you're coming up to one of my very favorite sessions, which is the amazing Bill Cook. Bill also has Cashflow Depot, right?
Cashflow Depot, yeah.
And
that's all of Jack's stuff.
Yes.
And Lonnie's stuff.
And there's things about me on there because somebody called me last week who watched me on your website. So thank you for that. It was very interesting.
Well, it was those pictures we had of you that...
Yeah. Woo. Yeah, 15 years ago, yes. Bill is an amazing mind, but he's also a fantastic educator in that one of the things I like about you, Bill, is that you're able to take sort of complex things and make them understandable.
Thank you.
Because like when you learn from, say, Pete Fortunato and stuff, a lot of it just goes right over your head. But Bill has a way of simplifying things. He has the T-bar and so much more. But the key is, in this environment with rates have doubled in a year, is to be able to make your off-market deals directly with sellers without a broker and without a banker, okay? And if you can do that and you can learn to structure those deals so that everybody is winning in those, you can continue to buy and hold literally as much as you want. So what I want to do is have a really warm, first-time deal maker welcome for my friend Bill Cook.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it. Thank y'all. How many people in here are new, done less than 5 deals? Okay, I want to share something with you. When I first started going to seminars, I found 3 really good teachers early in, and I was real happy about that. But this is something y'all should know and you'll relate to. Because you had Mary speak, and she spoke from her heart. And you had Jeff speak, and he was talking about trust. A number of us, we be talking about different techniques that may be over your head. So the first time that I heard, let's say, Jack Miller speak, I understood when he said, "Good morning. It's time for lunch. Thanks for coming." And everything else he said in between those things went right over my head. No, it wasn't you. It definitely was me. And Pete's worse than, listen to Pete is harder than Jack. So it's kind of tough. And how old are you? Yeah. You're 23, okay. I'm going to come back. What's your generation known as? I'm lost here. Losers. He said losers. It's not, what is it? Generation Y, what is it? Huh? When were you born? Like 2000. Okay, he's 2000. I will come back and try to untangle some of the things that we say because you're going to have a tough time speaking the language that we speak, right? So I'm going to try to help here to speak your language. And here's some of the problems we're going to have. If y'all feel like joining in with me, you can. This is talking about the difference in language, right? Let's see. When it's done, tastes good. Ever heard that one before? I'd walk a mile for a... And you're thinking, why would anybody walk a mile for a camel? I'd rather fight than... You have no idea what I'm talking about, do you? See, in your world, I'm dumb as I can be. But in my world, it's going back and forth. So we're going to have fun here when we do this. So today, Jim has asked me here, and I'm very grateful to talk about creative deal structuring. We have that. And I'm going to have to stand over here. I want to begin with the most important lesson I ever learned as a real estate investor. And I'm hoping that you'll relate to this. So long ago, I started writing a newspaper column in Georgia and wrote it for 13 years. And back in around 2001, 2002, I was doing a deal that involved 4 heirs. Mom had died, 4 people inherited. I was getting dangerous with creative deal structuring, and I put together an offer that had 9 moving parts. So, what's going to happen when I make an offer that has 9 moving parts? They're going to turn it down. Why? A confused mind says no. And I knew this, so I called up Pete Fortunato, who's the best creative deal structurer on the planet. He'll just rock your world. And I said, can you help me here? I've got too many moving parts here. And he went from 9 moving parts to 2. I presented, they accepted, and Kim and I still have that house today. It's one of our rentals. And I'm real proud of that deal. I wrote a newspaper column about that particular deal, and it was titled Pete Fortunato, the greatest outside the box thinker. Because we've all heard thinking outside the box. What's your name? Mike. Okay, Mike, you've heard that phrase before, right? And we all have. Think outside the box. And when it ran, I cut it out of the paper and I put it in a nice plaque and I mailed it down to Pete. Pete Fortunato, the greatest outside the box thinker. And he got it, and Pete sent me back a 2-word email. Guess what the email said? What box? And that really floored me. So for 3 days, I sat next to our fire pit making notes, because I'm thinking we're trying to work outside of some box, and Pete's telling me there is no box. And after 3 days, I drove down to Madeira Beach, and he and I spent the day together, and this is basically the lesson he taught me. For real estate investors, for all of us to reach our full potential as creative deal makers, we have to understand that you're not trying to work outside of some box. You have to understand there is no box. Real estate investing is a very simple business. It's just not easy. It's very straightforward. Our job is not to buy, sell, or rent houses. Our job is to help people solve their real estate problems. And the better you are at solving problems, the more prosperous, the more successful you're going to be. If all you know how to do is make a 70 cent on the dollar offer, in other words, if all you know how to do is use the big damn hammer. When you open up your creative deal structuring toolbox, the only thing in there is the big damn hammer. If that's your situation, then everything is going to look like a nail, right? So when someone says, I need to sell my house, I don't want to sell my house right now. Too bad. Bam! I can pay you 70 cents on the dollar minus expenses. Or if someone says, I want to sell the house, but not in the next 2 or 3 years. Bam! All I can do is pay you 70 cents on the dollar minus expenses. If this is the only tool you have in your toolbox, can you imagine how many deals you're walking by year after year after year? Deals that you could have done if you just had a different nut. You can keep the big hammer in the toolbox because sometimes it's needed. But sometimes using one of the other tools is going to be better. And that's where creative deal structuring comes into effect. Now, first of all, I want to thank Jim, because Jim's doing something this year that he's never done before. And I think we should thank him for it, because he has really gone new age. Now, for those of you who are 23 years old, Mike, right? Okay, if your feelings get hurt, if you need a safe spot to go to, if you feel like someone's infringed on you, if you didn't get called the proper pronoun, Jim has gone to great expense to hire the best pronoun policeman in the country. So if you do get your feelings hurt, make sure you seek out this policeman who Jim's hired, and he will take care. He will take care of you the way you should be taken care of. Okay, Mike? So you go see that guy. He's roaming around here. He'll be up here tomorrow. You'll see him, and he'll make sure you get taken care of. I want you to feel free to ask questions. Don't wait for the end. As you have questions, raise your hand. Let's get the questions out. I'm much more like free flow. You know, when you're sitting at the kitchen table with a seller, you can't say, let me do my entire sales pitch and talk at them the entire time. There's a lot of back and forth. You're shaking your head up and down, Mike. So you know what I'm talking about, right? It's a lot of back and forth, a lot of questions and answers. I guess I have to be close to this one. Jeff? There we go. So creative deal structuring is an extremely broad topic. So when Mike said, I want you to talk about creative deal structuring and tell everything you know, and you have 1 hour to do it in. So there's just no way to do that. So the only thing I could do is say, what can I do to make it a little bit easier? So I'm going to focus down on one of the tools more so than the rest. And one of the things I want you to know is that the best way to describe creative deal structuring is to tell you what it's not. So when you see a house that you like, and there's a realtor sign in the yard, and you call the realtor, or you have your realtor call their realtor, and there's contracts that, the contract is what, 27 pages long, font 3, right? So you get one of those contracts done, and it gets accepted. Then you go to the bank and you get a loan, and you wait the 45 days for approval. Then you go sit down with a title agent, or you sit down with a closing attorney, and then it closes, and you sign 3,000 documents over the course of 2 hours until you have a hand cramp. That is not creative deal structuring. Everything else is. So we're going to talk about the everything else in about the next 50 minutes, and I'm sure we're going to do just great. So let's talk about some of the creative deal structuring tools. Who in here has done owner financing? Good. Raise your hands high. Okay. For those of you who are in the room, especially if you're newer, your best source of information will not come from the stage this weekend. It's going to come from each other. So when you see someone raise your hand, you should take note of who they are and say, can you tell me about how you do creative deal structuring? Another technique is going to be subject to deals. Who in here has done a subject to deal? Raise your hand. Wow, that's about an eighth of the room. I'm surprised. Okay, as we go into the turned economy, how would you like to be able to buy a property and have a 2.9, 3.0, 3.1% 30-year fixed rate mortgage with 27 or 26 years left on it? Would you like to have one of those notes? Okay, so we're looking at subject to deals, so we want to learn those. Who in here has done master leasing, also known as wrap leasing, also known as sandwich leasing? Raise your hand. Wow, that's a 16th of the room. How about landlording? How many landlords do we have in the room? Oh, that's better. So if you're someone who watches A&E all the time or HGTV, if that's who you are, that's great. But understand, when you see those people who are flippers, please know that the flippers are not investors. They're good business people. They're capitalists. They're buying a can of beans for $1, and they're selling that can of beans for $3, and they're able to keep 25 cents profit after all expenses are paid. But if they want another quarter, what do they have to do? Go buy another can of beans for $1 and then sell it for $3. And they want another quarter? It never ends. How about the landlords in this room? What do you have to do to get your rent checks in? Go to the P.O. box. Now, you will have some vacancies. You'll have some things go wrong. But real wealth, financial freedom, will come from you holding capital, not continually churning it. How about foreclosing on yourself? Lonnie's done that. A couple of us have. Who in here is foreclosing on themselves? The rest of you are going, what? No, I don't have time for that. That is a thing. I just want you to know that. How about leasing with options? Who in here has done a lease with an option? More of you, good. How about land contracts? So some states are really good about land contracts. In Georgia, we really don't use land contracts because the foreclosure process is so fast and there's no right of redemption. It doesn't make sense to use land contracts in Georgia. And that leads to another thought, which is, as you're investing, when you hear things, understand things that will work in one state may not work in the state where you are. So make sure that you join your local RIA. You're going to the people who really understand your state, like Mississippi, like New Orleans, like Louisiana. And Louisiana, I can't even figure. My family's from, my daddy's family's from South Louisiana. So when you go down and see them, they be talking like this here. Don't understand no what they ever be saying, but they be talking to you like this. And my wife, she's from Georgia. She go down to South Louisiana. They go up to her and say, hey, girl, how you be doing? And my wife looks at me and she says, what'd they say? And I said, they said they like your hair. So South Louisiana is French law. It's not Commonwealth law, and that's a completely different world. And now I was going to talk about the nickname for a Cajun, but I'm just not going to do it in this room because they're not going to believe me. I'm going to let that go. Thanks, Leon. I looked at you and went, no, Leon wouldn't say that. I better not either. Anyone in here know what the nickname for a Cajun is, by the way? Nobody? Okay. Who in here has done a wrap mortgage deal? Okay, more of you. And Lonnie deals? Lonnie deal is where you buy a mobile home in a mobile home park for cash. You don't have to buy it for cash, but let's just say you buy a mobile home in a mobile home park. and then you sell it on terms. So you don't, you hold the title, but it works a lot more like a note than anything else. And I love that a lot. And who in here has done a pure option? A pure option is when you use an option by itself. A lease is not used. Who's done a pure option? And that, I want y'all to look around and almost nobody's hands go up. And so I'm going to be talking about options today, but I want you to understand why. It's because you have almost no competition because nobody really knows how to use options. So we'll be moving into that. So let's talk about how do you learn creative deal structuring. And you have to understand that it's a learned thing. It's not a born knowing how to do a thing. So if you're new here, just understand you're learning a language. And you have to think of it that way. You're just learning a language. And a language takes time, and it takes patience, and it takes practice. It's a tough thing to get. But just know that you're not born knowing how to do it. So to use an example, it's not Mark, Mike? Mike, how hard is it to learn Chinese? Very hard to learn Chinese. No, it's very easy. I'll prove it to you. Do you know right now in China there's 1 billion 5-year-olds who speak Chinese fluently, right? They've never been to school. Their brains are not fully formed, yet they speak Chinese fluently. How is it that these little critters can speak Chinese fluently? Repetition? What's the real secret here? How can they speak Chinese fluently? They're around it all the time. We call that immersion, right? We call that immersion. You have to be around it all the time. And it's not enough to get immersed. You have to stay immersed. So I'll give you an example of this. My first language was not English. My first language was Spanish. I was born in Barranquilla, Colombia, in South America. So I learned Spanish, and then we moved to a little place called Tiquisate, Guatemala. Then we moved to Thailand. So my second language was Thai. So I lived in a little place called Udan Thani, Thailand, was on the Laotian border, and we lived in country. We didn't live on an American base or anything, so I learned Thai, and that was my second language. When we moved to the States, when I was almost 7 years old, at the time to start school, my parents moved to the great educational metropolitan area known as Enterprise, Alabama. You have this face with an Oriental accent. So they just all agreed, all my teachers agreed I was retarded, and they put me in the retarded class. So that's where I fit. I kid you not. Now, I worked desperately to learn English. And by the time I was 12, 13 years old, I spoke English fluently. But guess what I didn't speak anymore? Spanish or Thai. How come? I didn't use the language. I just wouldn't use it. I just learned English, but I got good at the one I was speaking. Now, Kim and I, for the last 2 years, have been trying to learn Spanish. So I've been doing Duolingo. Today was 727 days in a row of learning Spanish, my native tongue of all things, right? So just understand what we're really talking about here is what creative deal structuring is about. First of all, where do you go learn creative deal structuring? And you have to be around people who speak the language. This event, Jim Ingersoll's event, Dealmaker, is a great place to go. When I walked in here, and I love how the tables are set up where everybody has to talk to each other, and you're eating lunch here. And I heard there's a lot of evening stuff goes on and a place to go to dinner. You want to be around those people on a regular basis. I've been to Mary's house before. We had a number of our friends all get together, and we talked. We were at Brad and Cindy's for a number of years where we would get together and we would talk. So we'd put together mastermind groups. I'm always seeking to get around investors. This whole last week, I was hiking on the Appalachian Trail around Damascus, Virginia. So I had a number of friends of mine who are investors. I do something called Backpack RIA. RIA stands for Real Estate Investing Adventure. So we all get together and we go hike on the Appalachian Trail. And I have something called Scuba RIA. And we go scuba diving for about a week. And I have something called Bike Touring RIA. So we get on our bicycles for about a week. I think, where's Jeff? He's outside. We have something called RV RIA. So next month we're getting together in Wisconsin. Last year we were in Kentucky, and I think there were like 65 or 70 people there for a week. But you want to get yourself around people, and that's going to help you learn the language. One of my best sources, and I use this just to say it, but gray hair, bald heads, okay? But what I mean is someone who's been doing this for a long time. So obviously, my wife is not bald-headed, but she's very wise when it comes to real estate investing because she's been doing this for so long. So you want to be around really smart investors who know what they're doing. Also, people always ask me about it. I don't mentor and I don't coach. I always give people my phone number so you're welcome to call me about a deal you're working on, but I don't mentor or coach. But mentoring or coaching programs or mastermind programs, whatever it is that works for you, that gets you around other people and that you are relating to, that everybody's different. There's no the way. There's no Bill's way. I mean, there's just Bill's way. There's going to be your way. And you want to be able to make that work. So why learn creative deal structuring? Because it's going to help you to understand, it's going to help you to make the impossible deals not just possible, but profitable. And if all you know how to use is the big damn hammer, you're walking by so many different opportunities and you're saying there's too much competition and I can't make this work, it's because you're fishing in a barrel. And what you should do is be fishing in the ocean where there's lots of room and lots of game and there's no competition really to speak of. And it works a lot better that way. Dink. I guess we got to stay close to this thing. Here we go. So write this down. This came from Pete Fortunato. There is no such thing as an impossible deal, but there are impossible people. And you're going to run into them on a real regular basis. You're going to come up with the most beautiful, creatively structured deal you've ever done in your lifetime. You're going to be so excited you want to share it with everybody. But the problem that you're going to run into is that the people you're working with, it doesn't work for them. So as you're structuring, it has to be from their point of view, not yours. Not how beautiful your deal is, not how beautiful your solution is. Does it work for them? So on what I just gave you, I want you to see what Kim and I did. So I'm telling you, this may work for you. I'm going to show you what we did. These were mine and Kim's three teachers. That's Jack Miller and Pete Fortunato and Dyke Spotiford. And in 1997, in 1998, I found these three men. And I knew immediately they were for me. And I went and still go to everything they teach. In June, Pete will be teaching acquisitions. In the fall, Dykes will be teaching a course. You heard Jim say that all Jack Miller's material, he passed away in 2009, is on cashflowdepot.com. So these are still my main teachers, and these are the ones I go to, but I want you to find people that you relate to. 2 or 3, 4, whatever it is, whatever your number is, but find those teachers, and you link to them, and you go to them, and you go to them a lot, and you will learn the language that way. Is Jeff out here? Jeff? Another thing I do is, as I told you about, oh, there's Jeff. Jeff, you want to stand up and say hello to the nice people? Jeff, go ahead and stand up. This is Jeff Chahusky, everybody. Say, hey, Jeff. This is my good friend, Jeff Chahusky. So we've been friends for a long time. And of all my friends, I think I have more wicked pictures of Jeff. And to figure out which one I'd go with was a little bit of a trying time for me. But anyway, I spent a lot of times with like-minded thinkers. Not at a seminar, not at a mastermind, just where I call them up on the phone or talk to them. Make your lifelong friends here. So one of the problems I had with my ability to structure deals is I wanted all my friends from Cartersville, Georgia to be on the journey with me. I wanted them to go to you're nodding your head up and down. What's your name? Yes, ma'am. Whitney? So Whitney, you know what I'm talking about. So I wanted my friends that were in real estate investing to do this with me, and they wouldn't they wouldn't do this. They said it was too busy, I'm a family man, it's too much money, we don't have the time. And I really just wanted someone that I could travel with, and I got nobody. And Kim and I had a RIA in Cartersville, Georgia that was 2,400 people Even from that, I couldn't find someone who would do it regular. And I found my friends that I formed my little group of anywhere from 4 to 6 people. It alternated. It kind of moved around 4 to 6. When'd you come in, Randy? Holy cow. Anyway, sorry, I just saw a face in the crowd that he and I have been out door knocking before. I door knocked in Randy Shelley's neighborhood one time. We'll talk about door knocking in a second. I'm going to get way off topic here, but Randy was saying, well, how do you find deals? What do you do? And I told him I'm a door knocker. He said, yeah, that doesn't work here in Chattanooga. And so he had me come up, and I went out door knocking with Randy in his neighborhood. In Randy's neighborhood. And we got in almost everybody we talked to. And worse than that, when we went down on Randy's street, there was a cul-de-sac at the end. And there was a couple out there that were dragging branches around, and they were kind of cleaning up their yard. So when I was in the lead car, and when we did the loop on Randy Shelley's street, I went by these people because they looked busy, so I didn't stop. And so I went, which meant the car behind me went. When the third car tried to go by, the lady and the man jumped in front of the third car and stopped them. And they were incensed because they heard we were in the neighborhood making offers, and they wanted to get their house sold, and they wanted to know why we weren't willing to stop at their house and make them an offer. It was on Randy's street when this happened. Am I making this up, Randy? So, Randy and I have talked. He's been up to the horse ranch before. So, I have friends, and you want to build that network of your friends, and you'll build them in an event like this. But you have to call them. If you think they're going to call you all the time, it's not going to happen. Almost all the time, I'm making the phone calls. How are you doing? How are you doing? How are you doing? You know, what's going on? And just keeping those friendships alive. So, when we went to a seminar, we would implement what we learned. By implement, it meant I door knock. I've been a door knocker and made my living knocking on homeowners' doors and being invited in since I was 12 years old. It's all I've ever done. To put myself through college, I sold vacuums, Electrolux vacuums door to door. And then when I graduated, I could make so much more money with Electrolux than I could with Procter & Gamble. I stayed with Electrolux. So my whole life has been spent knocking on doors and being invited in. And when I was taking groups of investors out, I'd take 60 investors at a time with me, like when I did in Randy's neighborhood. And here's what would happen. And you're not going to believe this when I say this. I would tell the group before we headed out, and I did this all across the country for years. I said, we will make between 5 and 10 written offers today. And this is in a subdivision I've never been to. I said, better yet, 8 out of 10 sellers will invite us in. Let me say that again. 8 out of 10 sellers will invite us in. All 60 of us. I know you're laughing. All 60 of us would get in. 8 out of 10. So I'm getting to the kitchen table 8 out of 10 times, 80% of the time. And that's whether it had a realtor sign or a FSBO sign. If they were selling their house, 80% of the time I got in. So has anyone in here not door knocked? Terrified of it?
Too long.
You shook your head, kind of? You not for you? What's your name? Andrea? This is my door knocking book. 100 pages of more than 50 years worth of experience in it, and how I make my offers. I hope that helps you out. So as you see my deals, I want you to understand where they're coming from. So Kim and I are not rocket scientists. We're not rock stars, nothing like that. We're just mom and pop. I work a 5-mile circle around the Cartersville, Georgia Walmart. I don't work 50 states. I work a 5-mile circle around the Cartersville, Georgia Walmart, and I've been doing that since 1999 when we moved to Bartow County. I had moved from one circle to this circle. And so if you think you have to travel a big area, no, you don't. Because if you look up where Cartersville, Georgia is, which is halfway between Atlanta and Chattanooga, it's not a big town. And I would door knock. It takes me about 3 months to get around my area. And then I would go around it again, and again, and again, and again. And there was a girl that I talked to last night that she went door knocking with me here in Richmond. What's your name? Lisa, so you were out door knocking with me when I was here in Richmond, because I door knocked here probably 3 times, I think, if I remember correctly. Did we get shot? Killed? Cops called on us. People were just kind and nice, and that's just going to be what you're going to see. But anyway, so our portfolio consists of single-family houses, a mobile home, small mobile home park, notes and options. And everything we've gotten, again, is just through hard work. So if that relates to you, just don't think that you have to be this big super whiz whatever. You just have to get out there and you got to work pretty hard. And if you want to know anything about me and what I really am after as far as on the deal structuring, if you go to our website, which is BillandKimCook.com, on it you're going to see a button that says about Bill and Kim. And you're going to see our biography. And I promise you, you don't give a damn about our biography. But below that is our history. And that's by year, what deal structuring techniques did I learn? And once you go look at that history and look at how long it took Kim and me to become competent at creative deal structuring. It wasn't over a weekend. It wasn't even over 5 years. It was 10 years before we became pretty decent. And at 20 years, we were even better. And at 30 years, we had mastered, just like learning the language. So now let's move. We talked about a number of the different techniques of creative deal structuring, but I want to show you one that you probably haven't seen before. And what I teach about these days is basically advanced creative deal structuring. That's what I love teaching. It's called structure stacking. In other words, in most deals, it's not a subject to deal. It's not a master lease. It's not an owner finance. You're using different tools to make a single deal work. A lot of times you may use a master lease with an option, with a carryback, with owner financing wrapped in. So you're going to use different tools to make a single deal work. That's advanced creative deal structuring. So you need to understand how the tools work before you even think about doing something on the advanced level. But that's what we focus on. And the other thing is options. Jack Miller was my options teacher, and he was phenomenal. And when he passed away in 2009, I've begged Pete to teach an options course because he was the person who should have picked up the mantle and run with it. And he just didn't want to. And so for 10, 11 years, you were at the table when I would ask him, right? And he just wouldn't do it. And I finally told him in January of last year, I said, Pete, we can't let options die. And if you're not going to teach options, I'm going to start. And he said, Bill, I'm not going to teach options. He'll teach it in his courses, but not a solid 2-day course. And that's kind of what options take because, as you're about to see, there's lots of stuff to it. So my first teacher on options was Jack Miller. And I first took that class in 1999, and I did my first options deal in 2001. Jimmy, remember when you remember his bell? You know, he had 2 bells. And a friend of mine has one of them, and I have the other. So that's how I ring in all my seminars is with Jack's bell. Anyway, when Jack passed in 2009, I started focusing on and really spending time with Pete, and because he's great at doing options. He has a unique way of doing them. So this is where my education came from, but it's not enough to be at a seminar like this at Dealmaker and just get educated. You have to go engage the transmission. So, when you get home on Friday, what's the most important thing you do on Friday? I don't care if you knock on the door. I'm not asking you to be door knockers. I really am not. I'm going to ask you to do one. Okay? Just do one. But I don't ask you to be door knockers. What should you be doing on Friday? Don't say organizing your office or organizing the book. What should you be doing on Friday? Who should you be meeting with? A seller. You want to meet with one seller, and I want you to write this down. This is Pete's famous line. When you meet with a seller, you're going to ask him only one question. You don't have to ask another question. Just listen to this one question. And the question is, anybody know it? What is it? I've added such. Why would you want to sell such a nice house like this? And listen, you don't have to structure. You don't have to have the money. You don't have to put it together. You don't have to have any contracts. Listen, learn to talk to people, and when I say talk to, I mean ask questions of people. So if you'll do that, you'll do great, but that's where you want to get started. So options are the most powerful and the most versatile tool in real estate. It's going to let you do things that no other tool will come close to letting you use, as you're about to see. The other thing with options is they are going to be the least understood and least used tool in real estate. For 8 years, Pete Fortunato and Dykes Boddiford and I did something called the Captains of the Deal Cruise. And we would take 200 investors out for 9 days on the ocean. And we would have a great time. But when people came on the boat, we asked them this question. We asked 3 questions. The first question was, how many doors do you own or control? How many properties? How many doors do you own or control? And on average, this group of 200 investors controlled 5,500 doors. Would you say that that's a significant number? So we're talking about some seasoned investors on this cruise. The second question we asked is, how many notes do you own or control? It was always around 2,400. So again, a lot of lending was going on. The third question we asked was, how many options do you own or control? And the most we ever saw put down was 115, meaning a total of the entire room, 115. If you took away the options that I held and that Pete held, it was sad. No one uses options, and even fewer use options today. So what is an option? An option is a right to real estate. An option is you don't own it. You just have the right to own it, which means it can be much safer, so it becomes your choice. And what this means is, if you have a right to something, that means the person who has that house can't sell to anybody but you. All they can sell it to is you. But do you have to buy it from them? No, you don't have to buy it from them. So that's where that is a right, not an obligation. How many realtors do we have in this room? Raise your hand high so I can see you. Okay, so we have about 10 realtors. Do you all know and realize that your purchase and sale agreement that you use begins life as an option? Most of you are actually using options because your purchase and sale agreements also begin life as an option, because it says, I will pay you $300,000 for this house, subject to me getting financing, subject to an inspection of the property. And if the seller signs it and you sign it, is the seller not obligated to you? Yes. Are you obligated to buy the property? No. That's an option. That's going to be, you have a way to move around them. They don't. So a bilateral contract is going to be like the realtor's contract once the contingencies have run their course. So that's going to be a bilateral contract. A unilateral contract is an option. One party must perform, the other party may perform. So it's a case of must buy versus may buy, and with must buy, that can be dangerous if we're going into uncertain times. Can anybody tell me where the real estate market will be 2 years from now? No? We just don't know. So sometimes using options is a much safer way to go. Now here's what most people know about options. Lease options. Y'all say it with me. Lease options. You got to say it faster. Lease options. Because you think it's one word. Lease options. You think it's just one tool, and it's not. We talked about structure stacking. You have to understand you're looking at 2 tools at work here. You're seeing a lease and you're seeing an option. And the lease will give you use of the property. That's what that tool does. And an option gives you the right to buy the property. So it should not be lease option, it should be a lease with an option to buy at some point in the future at a pre-agreed to price and terms. So that's what that is. So because you're using 2 different tools at one time, this is where we start moving to the more advanced things, and that's where you start seeing, we call it structure stacking. And most investors never scratch the surface of what options can do because all they know it is with lease options, and that's going to be the sum total. So options can be used to buy a property. Most of you have done that. If you're investors, you can sell a property to a tenant and you give them the right to buy it. You also know that you can use an option to sell a property. To buy is where if I want to, what's your name? Robert. So if I want to buy your property, I can get an option from you when I have the right to buy it. The same thing if you're one of my tenants, I can rent to you and give you the right to buy it. I can also use an option to park a property. And what I do then is if I'm not ready to buy it right now, I can't get funding or I've got to see what the market's going to do, I can have the right to buy it, but just not right now. So I've parked it. I can also use an option to protect it because when you secure an option to a property using a mortgage or deed of trust, and you can do that, by the way, does that not create a title flaw? It does. And so I want you, how many people in here own rental property or own investment property? Raise your hand. A lot of you. So sometimes, and I'm not an attorney, but sometimes having a title flaw on your properties can be a really good program for asset protection. I'm not going to go into detail with that, but I just want you to know that that is possible. And those of you that are experienced, you can scratch your head and go, we can do that. You can also use an option to help someone buy a property that helps someone that wants to sell who doesn't want to sell today. You can also use an option for someone who there's a property they want to buy, but they can't possibly afford it. And I'm about to show you examples of this, but let's look at some options at work. This is William Street. This was in 2020. And when I knocked on the door, this is the conversation. And I was just out door knocking. And his house was not for sale, no for sale sign, but it's a neighborhood that I work on a regular basis. And as I went through the neighborhood, in this particular case, I just said, this doesn't sound crazy, but I love your house. I love your street. I love your neighborhood. My wife and I would love to own a home here. And I said, do you know anybody who has a house for sale or thinking about selling? And he said, yeah. Me. He reminds me of what Mary went over this morning. His shoulders rolled down, his head lowered, his voice lowered. Yeah, me. And I said, it doesn't sound like you want to sell. He said, I don't want to sell. He said, this is the house of our dreams, but I can't afford it anymore. The property taxes have gone through the roof, and it looks like we're going to have to sell. And in talking to him, I said, well, since you don't want to sell, I said, if there was a way that you never had to pay property taxes ever again, would that be worth a glass of sweet tea to you at your kitchen table? And he said, I never had to pay property taxes again? What's the catch? I said, don't worry about the catch. Would this be something that interests you? He said, yeah. So I sat down with he and his wife at the kitchen table. Now remember what he's saying. He doesn't want to sell. He can't afford the property taxes. I learned he was about 3 years from having his mortgage paid off. That would make all the difference in the world to him. And he just didn't want to sell. So this is the conversation that I had with him just because I knocked on the door one day. You're going to love that book. What's your name again? Andrea. You're going to love that book. Now, this is the most important document I use in real estate investing. Nothing comes close to this. This is known as a T-bar. I started using T-bars when I was 18 years old. It was called who in here is a salesman? Remember the Ben Franklin clothes? Right, the T-bar? Yes, no? Well, that's a T-bar. And so I started using that when I was 18 or 19 years old. And then I saw Pete use T-bars a different way back around 2000, 2001. And then I combined the two into this kind of T-bar. And all it is when I'm sitting at someone's kitchen table, I ask for a piece of paper so I can make my notes. And what I'm trying to do is find out their why. Because sometimes the why is more important than the how much. And in this case, I'm talking to them, and what it says on the left-hand side is current position. And on the right-hand side, it says potential position. So as I'm talking to them, I'm writing down on the left-hand side what they're telling me. I'm finding out where it hurts. Where are the pain points? Because the way you do your deals, the way you'll get deals is by solving the pain points, by making the pain either go away or make the pain not be as bad as it was before. So here I am talking to him. Look what he's saying. I don't want to sell right now. My property taxes are too high. He doesn't know how to fight his property taxes. He can't pay the property taxes anymore, and he doesn't want to move. Now, as I'm talking to someone, I'm doing a T-bar. This is the left-hand side, but I'm doing an arrow to the right-hand side, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm not thinking about how to structure. I'm thinking about what would this problem look like solved? I don't know how to put it together. My creative deal structuring toolbox is in my car. Now, there's not a real deal structuring toolbox, but I mean, it's not there. I'm not thinking about how to pay for it. I'm not thinking about how to put it together. I'm only thinking about what does this look like done. So when he says, I don't want to sell right now, right-hand side, you don't have to sell right now. Well, that'd be a better situation for him. Now, I'm going to have to figure out how to make that happen, and it says his property taxes are too high. I said, well, we can lower your property taxes. I happen to be really good at fighting property taxes. He said that he can't really afford to pay his property taxes. And I said, what, you'll never have to pay your property taxes ever again. So as I'm going through and talking to them, and I'm doing this T-bar, now I've got to come up with the tools I need to make this happen. But do you see that when you go out and you're there to solve problems, and if you can get these problems solved, you're much more likely to get a deal than if all you did is made the 70-cent minus expenses offer on the property. Because in this case, would that offer have worked? No, why not? He doesn't want to sell. It wouldn't have worked. And you couldn't afford to pay 70 cents on the dollar, or he couldn't afford to have you pay that. So here's the deal structure. The fair market value was $175,000. How did I know this? I comped it. I looked it up. Holy cow. Okay, write this down. I'm going to give you all a website to go to. It's the best website in the world to learn anything you want to know about a property. The history of it, who's lived there, kids' names, mortgages, fair market value, what schools are like. It's a free website. It's amazing. You want to write this down. The free website is www.talktothedamnneighbors.com. That's where all my information comes from. Talk to the damn neighbors. Okay. And so tell me your name again? Josh. So where do you think the 175 came from? Do you think I went and got on a computer? Look at how old I am. I am not this guy over here. I didn't get on a computer. So where did the 175 come from? I looked at him and said, what's your house worth? What did he tell me? 175. And it's inside my 5-mile circle. So do I know my area pretty good? So I said, yeah, that's about right. So that's where the one said, there's no looking up. There's right there where we're good to go, one little area. Next, I said, we're going to fight your property taxes for you. I've been fighting property taxes for 16 years, and I win 84% of the time. But from now on, I'm going to fight your property taxes for you. Better yet, from now on, I'm going to pay your property taxes for you each and every year. So you never have to pay your property taxes. As long as you own this house, you never have to pay them again. Here's what I want in return. Now, once I understood the T-bar, now comes my offer. In return for fighting your property taxes, in return for paying your property taxes, in return for you to be able to stay in your house, what I request is the right to buy your house sometime in the next 30 years for the $175,000. So what does that mean? If he agrees to this, what would I be capturing? All the appreciation on this property. So as today, up to that point, he gets all the appreciation he's gained by owning this house. But from this point forward, all that appreciation is mine. And I said, for every dollar I pay in property taxes, I would like to have $1.50 off the strike price. Strike price meaning the $175,000. And he agreed to that. Then we made it a little bit better, and I said, well, you don't want to move now. When do you think you want to move? He said, well, in at least the next 10 years. I want to be here for at least 10 years, but we'll probably go down to Florida, move closer to the kids. I'll be older. I want to stay here for at least 10 years. So though I had a 30-year option on this property, I can't exercise it for the first 10 years. This was the accord, folks. Today, that house is worth about $235,000. Do the math. On a deal that most people would walk by. So William Street was known as a strategic option, which is a long-term option. And it works because the owner did not want to sell. And for us, this is a very long-term hold. So that means it's really great. I think one of the sponsors here is going to be, I think it's Quest. And we use self-directed accounts on a regular basis, as you're about to see. But we use self-directed accounts all the time. So the thing that's holding this option is going to be my 401k. So that's where the tax money comes from, and what's holding the option is my 401k. So it's really perfect for self-directed accounts. It's just, just something you have to learn. Now, one thing to be careful of, some of you that are more experienced, I did not offer him a buyback option. I looked at him and said, one day I'm going to buy the house. And when I buy the house, it's going to be my house. I don't go ahead of time and say, or wink, wink, nod, nod, you can buy it back from me for $210,000, because that's going to look a lot like a disguised loan. Don't ever do a disguised loan with a homeowner. What I may do with another investor is different, but with a homeowner and owner-occupant, do not offer a buyback option. But might the owner one day call me up on the phone and say, hey, listen, it's 10 years, and I'd like to stay here another 2 years. Might I get that phone call? Yes. Might I get a phone call that is 8 years and he needs me to go ahead and exercise now? First of all, do I have to exercise at 8 years? No. I may not want to. Maybe a master lease thing that comes up. But I just want y'all to see what's going to be happening here. So that is us working where someone does not want to sell. I want to show you an option. I want to show you a loan that we did yesterday. We closed last night at 4:45. Yeah. Yeah, Leon. Can you stand up where everybody can hear you?
What kind of management problems did you have with that property after that?
None.
Zero.
None. I don't own it.
That's right. No
I'm just holding an option
no
on the property.
management headaches, and you're getting. It's not like something where you have renters in there.
Yeah.
What if that property, what if they choose not to take very good care of it?
What if they choose? Good question. The question is, what if they choose not to take very good care of the property? That's a great question. In my option agreement, okay, let's do it this way. You get a loan from Bank of America. You're buying a house, you get a loan from Bank of America. What happens if you don't make the payments to them? You change your mind and you don't make the payments to them. What can Bank of America do? They can call it due and foreclose. What if you don't pay your property taxes? They can call it due and they can foreclose. What if you don't pay your insurance? They can call it due and foreclose. What if you don't take care of your property? With Bank of America, in the mortgage or in the deed of trust, it says if you don't take care of the property, they can call the note due and foreclose. Yeah, I've known lenders who have done it.
Do you go and check on that property once a year?
Do I go check on the property? It's inside my 5-mile circle, so the answer is I go by it all the time. So yeah, I do inspect them on a regular basis. Hang on one second. But the thing I want y'all to hear is I secure my options in Georgia using a deed of trust. I don't use a memorandum of option because if they don't honor the promises they made when they did the option, just like if someone doesn't honor the promises that they make with Bank of America when they borrow the money, the optionees, the grantees, what the grantee can do is then call the note due, and if it's still not turned over, they can then foreclose. So I have tremendous power with the property. They don't take care of it. They don't pay the property taxes. If they don't want to sell it to me, if they try to sell it too fast, if they sell it to somebody else, there's lots of teeth in the deal. But because I only have a few minutes to speak today, I just can't go into a whole lot of detail. I will tell you, this is a shameless plug, that there are flyers on your tables. And Kim and I will be teaching our options class in June. It's 2 days. And in that case, we deep dive into them, and I show you, you get a copy of the mortgages and all the stuff we use, and you see a lot more than just these options. But I want to show you this thing that I did yesterday. How many lenders do we have in this room? Okay. So this is the commercial note that we did just yesterday. This just closed. And on this deal, what I want you to see is I loaned $133,333.30. 13% interest, 4 points were rolled in. Right? Is this a good deal? It's on a mobile home park in Rome, Georgia. Is this a good deal? Lenders, is this a good deal? Good. We have great collateral, by the way. The collateral is worth about $200,000. Lenders? Yeah, good deal? Now, one day, this note will pay off. So how can I make this deal better? What can I do? In addition to this note, I told the borrower that they also had to give us an option, and the consideration was $1,000, and we are able to buy into that property to get 10% of the equity in the property anytime in the next 50 years. Have you ever done that as a lender? Think of how much money you're not getting by not throwing the option work in there. And I do this in almost all the lending I do. I get an option for part of the upside. Maybe it's for part of the monthly. So there's a lot you can do with an option. You can actually lower interest rates or points if you want to, but have an option on the backside. I just want you to see that deal was done yesterday. Now, I want you to see something else as far as on selling a property. This is how you can help someone buy a property they can't possibly afford. This is our horse ranch that Kim and I sold in 2018, and we moved into a motorhome, and we've been living in the motorhome ever since 2018, traveling around the country. So that's where we live, is in a motorhome. So I'm wearing a shirt that says, "What box?" And we live in a box. Never have figured that one out. Okay, value of this property is going to be $500,000, 2018. And I put it on the market at $497,900, which is a good price, just a little bit below. And I will take $497,900 all cash. Or I was more than happy to sell it for $575,000. Remember we talked about creative funding? So in this case, I'm able to charge more if I give owner financing. So if I give terms, I get a higher price. So I'll sell it with owner financing for $575,000. Or I'll trade this for something like better. And we almost traded for some storage units in North Carolina. It's just the person we're going to get the storage units from, the way he described it, these beautiful, incredible storage units in North Carolina, when Kim went to go see them, yeah, they weren't what they said. And you heard Mary talk about due diligence. That's why we go in the car and we go see the area and we go smell around and what does it smell like and feel like and taste like, and we backed out of that deal because of that. Or I would take $300,000 cash. Okay, who in here would want number one? If this is your house and you're selling, who in here would want the $497,900 cash? Raise your hand. One person, two people, three, four. Okay, how many in here would rather sell owner financing for $575,000 and get monthly payments for the next 30 years? More of you. Who in here would rather trade it for something that I like better? Just a couple of you. Who in here would rather have the $300,000 cash? One, two. What's the difference between number one and number four? $197,900. I'm good at math. By the way, we took number four. When my wife wanted to sell this property, what she said to me was, "Bill, I don't care if we get $1 a year. I want these people to buy my house." It was not our house. "I want these people to buy my house. And I don't care what you do, these people buy my house." And so I went to meet with them, so that's what she gave me. The asking price was $497,900. And when I met with them, they said they had to buy their house first. Now, isn't that an option? They want me to give them an option. In other words, we have a contract, I'm locked into it, but they don't sell their house, they don't have to perform. I didn't like the way this felt. So he said, "I can't get a $500,000 mortgage." What's the next question I asked him? "What can you get?" And what did he say? $300,000. What did I say? "Congratulations, you just bought yourself a house." What did my wife say to me? "I don't care if we make $1 a year," right? And I said, "You just bought yourself a house." So we agreed to sell our property for $300,000. Why is your brow doing that? So we sold our house for $300,000. Was that not a great move? So I agreed to $300,000. Were the buyers happy? Was Kim happy? She was happy. Was I happy? Hell no. I just lost $197,900. I think this is the stupidest deal in the whole world. So I didn't like this. And so I said, "No, I've got to cure this. I got to fix this. I got to creatively structure something." So I said, "Tell you what." He goes, "How's this work?" I said, "Here's how it's going to work. I'm going to sell you our house, but you're going to give me a 30-year option to buy it back any time during the 30 years for $300,000. He goes, what's that mean? I said, sometime in the next 30 years, I'm going to come to you. I'm going to give you back your $300,000. You're going to give me back the deed to my property. Pretty good, huh? Yeah. Y'all can clap. Was I happy? Was Kim happy? Were the buyers happy? Were the buyers happy? No. They didn't want the chance of me coming in and taking their house from them. They thought that was a really bad idea. Okay, so I had to fix it again. And I understand that I said, don't ever do a buyback option with a homeowner. I know that, but this is my favorite option deal I ever did. Anyway, here we go. So I said, they didn't like that. And I said, okay, I'll give you an option to buy my option anytime in the next 12 months for $197,900. Were the buyers happy? Yes. Buyers were happy. Because once their house was sold, they could refinance. Was Kim happy? Was I happy? I was thrilled because I didn't care whether they came through or they didn't come through. I was happy either way, so I'm good to go. So how do you know? Because it closed. This thing closed. I want you to see the T-bar. Jim, am I allowed to give out my slides? Yeah. Okay. If you will email me, and my email is bill at, what's on the sheet on your table. If you email me, I will send you these slides. You'll get them. But anyway, this is the T-bar that I used to make this deal happen. This is me sitting in the living room writing this up. This is what a T-bar really looks like. And the top is the T-bar, at the bottom is the offer. And if you look at it, you'll see that on the left-hand side, the reason why he wanted the property was freedom. We had a 34-acre horse ranch way back in the middle of nowhere. Jeff Chahusky said, he's buying a property that has 5 acres and he wants a house in the very back so nobody could bother him. This was that kind of property. So this is going to be the T-bar. This is me talking to him on the right-hand side, just saying, okay, this is me solving the problem. At the bottom, there I am. Once I understood what was going on, there's my offer that comes through on it. So I hope this helped. I hope this gave you an idea of just a little bit, just a scratch of the surface of what an option can do. I appreciate y'all having me here. I've known Jim for a long time. He and I have had the same teachers for a long time. I really like the speakers who are here that are up here teaching and giving their hearts and souls. I'll be around through Thursday afternoon when it ends. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have. I'm very grateful to you. Thank you so much.
Okay. You got a standing ovation.
Thank you.
Woo! We never get standing ovations.